Hi guys, it's the old man back again. I feel like I have a few more things I want to say. And I'm going to address you guys today a little bit on the subject of UFOs, UAPs, and the demonic. Okay, so you know from that title right away that there's a certain direction to this. And so if you're one of those people that thinks everything is scientific and that we have like space brothers coming from another planet, you might not want to watch this video. I'm just pointing out some things that I've learned from being a long time study of the paranormal and the UFO stuff. Excuse me. The UFOs, I've read zillions of books when I was younger, and I've looked into the paranormal. Anything that you couldn't explain had an interest for me. And so I don't think I'm alone. I think there's a lot of people like that. And I think in some ways it's a hook for people to get into this whole thing because they're like, wow, this is cool. What's that thing? And how does it fly without wings? And you know, what's going on here? It's a big mystery. And mysteries fascinate people. And I guess you could say that I was one of those kind of people that mysteries greatly fascinated, including the paranormal and everything else. but along through the years, you know, as I was a believer, I started to realize something. I started to realize that all of these things were leading into something really dark. And if you go to a paranormal or a UFO message board or website that you know, supports a certain narrative, you will find out that you will get resistance quickly from any view other than the one that they're supporting, which is that we have these planets coming, or these UFOs are coming from other planets. And then most recently we had the Atlas situation, where the Atlas, AI Atlas, whatever it is, which is really odd. And I'm not 100% sold on it. I don't trust NASA. If you look at the beginnings of NASA, you'll see what I mean by making that statement. But I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon, but I think there were some very misrepresented things there, and there's some things that can't be explained. And so there's some situations, without getting too deep into that subject, that were not honest, that have been misrepresented. So I'm not 100% sure that with this Atlas thing that we're looking at, that we're really getting the full picture of what's happening. And it's mighty interesting that as a believer, I see all of these things that have never happened before, by the way, lining up with biblical prophecy. As a believer, I see that happening. And if you're uninitiated in that and don't want to be initiated into that, then again, this is probably not your video, but maybe it is. Maybe you could learn something. And I'm not saying I know everything, but I will say that a lot of this UFO narrative that's coming out is preparing us for something. I feel like we have been conditioned for years to accept something that is going to happen, and they've been preparing us for it. And so the one thing that is all over the web, but if you're an unbeliever, once again, you haven't been searching it, is September the 23rd, which just happens to be tomorrow, which just happens to be the Feast of Trumpets, which just happens to be exactly 77 years from the time Israel became a nation, which just happens to be 7 years before 2032, which is another feast. I think it's the Feast of Tabernacles, is it? Or it's the next feast. So, excuse me, this is really... So, there are correlations here. Matthew 24, if you have access to a Bible. If you don't, look at the Blue Letter Bible. It's a good online free app that you can download. And if you read Matthew 24, you will see that some of that was directed immediately to the men that were with Jesus at the time, but then also some of the later part of that chapter are directed toward all of us. If you're a believer and you want to know what's going on, there's other references to that as well. If you look in Luke 21, parts of Daniel talk about how many days between certain events. And we happen to be on the end of the days of some other events that are going to happen. And these are exact day counts. These aren't, in Daniel, it's not like, well, give or take a year or two, No, no. We're counting days. We're counting days here. He told us how many days between this and that. And we've seen that. So I don't know what else to bring up. The earthquakes, and all that kind of thing. And you say, well, how does that tie into UFOs? Well, once again, we know we have a deep state here in the U.S. and probably other countries as well. And we know that they've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars. And we know that money, we don't know where it all went. And I don't think it all went to, teach different lifestyles to people in the Philippines or whatever. I don't know. We know that money has been used for black projects. Skunk Works, the guy that used to be in charge of Skunk Works said that we have things that you can't imagine, like Star Trek or, so he essentially told us at that time that we have technologies that surpass anything that the average person is aware of. And of course, in the UFO community and MUFON and all those guys, we have things that have been spotted that have no rational explanation outside of it being a craft that we built that nobody really is very familiar with, even though, in certain parts of the web, you can find out all about the TR-3B and the flying triangles and all that stuff. But I think that was way back in the 80s, 90s. So I think we have stuff that far surpasses that even now. And if you want to get into the idea that we got some technologies from other things besides human beings, which is something I believe. I think the Germans, they were getting things, information from other sources, let's just say, and those were dark sources, but they didn't see them that way. And the Book of Enoch will tell you all about that. You can go through where the angels were passed knowledge on to human beings that human beings were not supposed to have at that time, and how essentially God's creation has abused just about everything we've ever been given. And they had a responsibility. We were going to be exposed to that stuff later, but right now was our time to be, it was too early for us to be getting that kind of stuff. And of course, if you're on the other side and you're the enemy, you don't believe that, you'll take it wherever you can get it and however you can get it. And that's essentially what's happened. Our government has been funding and supporting the other side for quite a long time. And not just, I'm not demonizing our country. It's going on other places in the world. And it all ties together in a very strange kind of way, but there are organizations of people who their whole goal is to bring in a one world government, and their whole goal is to help bring in a deception, a UFO deception, which is what I think we see coming with this Atlas. And I may not be here because I think that it's a very good probability that believers may not be here at that time. We see what's coming, and I am in no way saying that I am better, or I am certainly more informed, I think, than a lot of people are, but I am not better, and I'm not necessarily smarter. I am just informed. And this is through years of investigating UFOs, years of investigating not just the air ones, the underwater ones, the underwater bases, the tunnels all through the whole world. Anybody that shies away from all that stuff and just wants to go follow their daily life, go ahead. But I'm just telling you, this is all connected. All this stuff's connected. And we're going to see the fruition soon enough. Things are going to come to a head, and it's going to come down to us actually seeing, quote, beings, at some point, which could be AI generated, but could very likely also be real beings. because they do exist. Like, as I said in the beginning of my video, we dug them up. You know, we dug up the ancient ones, right? So there's so many ins and outs to this that in 10 minutes, it's very hard to get all of this out there. And if you want to know more, but I don't think we have time to know more, because I think actually you're going to see what I'm talking about very soon. And the question is, will you believe all this deception, or will you see it for what it really is? What do you want to believe? What are your biases? If you have a bias against or a bias for, then they could be leading you. If you have no biases, if you're fully objective, then maybe you'll see what I'm trying to say here. That there are things underway right now that are leading to certain destinations for the general public to fall into. When we are taken, the harpazo, when the Christians are gone, taken away, there's going to be mass deception, because they can't say, well, gee, their Bible was true and God really did come and get them. No, they're not going to, they can't buy that. No, as a matter of fact, that's just not going to sit. So they're just going to have to come up with something. And why do you think they've been preparing this alien thing for 40, 50 years? Why do you think that's the case? So this is where it's headed. And should we worry? I'm not worried about anything. I'm really not worried about anything. And when it does happen, if I'm here, I'm going to be like, yep, I guess I seen it before the end. And that's where we're at with this stuff, man. It's like, look at all these objects that look solid and then they change shape in midair. What do you think that's mechanical? Come on, that's not mechanical. A lot of that's spiritual stuff. And I mean, the government's even admitted this stuff. But they are trying to shape it. They could have brought this out 30 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. They could have brought this stuff out. Why are they bringing it out now? Well, I think we know that. But if we don't, I can tell you why. You know, we're coming to the end here and they need an explanation. So let me know your thoughts. Good, bad, ugly. You know, call me a kook. I don't care at this point. I don't care. I don't care what you call me. You can call me anything. Just don't call me late for dinner. As they used to always say. Have a good day, guys. And we will know soon enough if this Feast of Trumpets on the 23rd, 24th is going to be significant. If it is, you won't see me here anymore. If not, I'll still be here because we haven't lost the hope that we know that something is actually happening, but we may not be able to pin it exactly. But the chances are pretty good. I could be not around anymore, and you may be watching this video after the fact. And I'll just say, don't let them get you.